This story was sent in by one of our subscribers. He asked us to share it honestly, just as it happened, no sugarcoating, because what happened to him could happen to anyone, especially here, in Thailand. He didn't come for adventure or fantasy, he came for work. But one meeting in a bar turned his entire reality upside down. This isn't just a story about love. It's about the boundaries we're willing to cross when something feels warm, and how the truth isn't always where you expect to find it. Thank you to the subscriber for your trust. Now, the story. On the third Friday night, my coworkers dragged me into a bar. Just a regular spot on 2nd Road, nothing fancy, but with cold beer and music way too loud. "Relax, man. You're wound up like you're still in Switzerland," one of them joked. I grinned. It was late, and too hot to argue. "My name is Alex. I'm 42. I didn't come to Thailand looking for trouble. I came for work. My company opened a branch in Pattaya, and I was sent for 3 months to oversee the launch. New office, new faces, humid heat, traffic jams, and a strange feeling that everything around me was happening in a dream." She approached our table like it was an accident, cocktail in hand, red dress, and a confidence that gave me chills. She smiled only at me. We started talking about food, the heat, Pattaya. She said her name was Nami, spoke calmly, without flirting. I caught myself thinking I actually liked her. It felt easy, even warm. Later, one of my coworkers, tipsy, nudged me and whispered, "You know who that is? What do you mean?" He leaned closer like he was dropping a state secret. "That's a ladyboy. You serious?" I looked over at Nami. She was laughing with the bartender. Honestly, it didn't bother me. Not even a little. "She's a person," I said, "and I like being around her." The guys looked at me like I'd just confessed to murder. Some laughed, others shook their heads. I ignored them. Nami and I moved to another table. Her voice was soft, her eyes honest. No games, no pressure. I felt calm around her. For the first time in ages. She didn't ask for drinks or money. She didn't try to take me anywhere. She just talked. Told me she'd worked at the bar for a couple of years, came from northern Thailand, loved Keanu Reeves movies and Penang curry. At some point, I realized I wasn't thinking about work or Monday, just her. Just the way she smiled when she looked down. We started texting. I didn't push things. Just messaged when I wanted to hear from her. A few days later, she invited me to walk by the beach. The evening was warm, the sun sliding into the sea. We walked in silence, sometimes glancing at each other. It felt like everything had already been said, and that was enough. Then came the dinners. Laughter, accidental touches. She asked about life in Europe. I asked about her childhood, her family. We were from different worlds, but it felt like there was a bridge between us. One evening ended with her resting her head on my shoulder. "Aren't you scared to be with me?" she whispered. "No," I said. "I feel safe." I didn't know what this was, romance, chemistry, something else. But I waited for every meeting like it mattered. We didn't talk about the future. No plans, just presence. She never asked for gifts, never hinted at money. Sometimes she'd bring fruit from the market. That meant more than anything expensive. One day I suggested a weekend trip to Rayon. She said yes without hesitation. It was a short drive, an easy trip. We stayed at a small hotel near the beach. She read by the pool. I worked a little. At night, we watched the stars. It was quiet, and it felt right. Back in Pattaya, things fell into a rhythm. She started visiting more often just to talk, to watch movies. There was no drama, no pressure. I started noticing the looks from people around us, the whispers, office gossip, but I didn't care. One day, during lunch, a coworker asked, "Are you serious with her?" I shrugged. "What if I am?" He smirked. "You're brave, man. You know what she is." I nodded. "I know, and I'm okay with it." Each day, Nami felt more like a part of my life. Not a fantasy, not something temporary. A real person, with fears, with kindness, with a quiet fatigue from being judged. I stopped seeing her as different. I started seeing her as human. One night on the balcony, watching neon reflections in puddles, she said, "I'm tired of hiding. of always being not quite, of waiting for someone to flinch. I held her hand. With me, you don't have to hide anything. A few days later, she suggested another weekend away. We booked a bungalow in Rayong again, ate shrimp from the market, drank cold beer under the palms. It was all so simple. And in that simplicity, something real bloomed. No games, no pretending, no expectations. That night, she rested her head on my shoulder and suddenly whispered, "Before I say this, promise me one thing." "What is it?" I asked. She looked up at me and said, "Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like. It's important." I blinked. "What?" She paused for a moment, then smiled softly. "I'm scared I might like you." "Why?" "Because stories like this, they usually end badly." I smiled into the darkness. "Maybe ours won't." After that trip, we were inseparable. She came by after work, laughed at my tie, made spicy dinners. I met her friends. She met a few of my coworkers. We acted like a couple, but we never called it that. It felt fragile, like saying the word would break the spell. One evening, she asked, "What happens when you leave?" "I don't know. What do you want?" She looked away, silent for a long time, then whispered, "I'm not playing with you, I know. Just don't break my heart." I squeezed her hand. My chest tightened. Time passed. My return date loomed. She grew quieter, turned away in the mornings when I reached for her. One day she said, "Maybe you'll meet someone in your country." I shook my head. "You don't get it. I don't even want to look." But we both knew, distance breaks even the warmest things, especially when you don't talk about the future. When it was time to say goodbye, she wore my old t-shirt and eyes full of sadness. "Promise, you'll message me as soon as you land." "I promise." We hugged, not like lovers. Like two people who understood they'd been part of each other's lives, but maybe only for a chapter. I got back to Europe and messaged her right away. She replied almost instantly, "I already miss you." At first we texted everyday photos, voice notes, silly videos. It felt almost the same, but slowly, her replies got shorter. Sometimes, she wouldn't answer for days. I kept telling myself she was just busy, tired, bad signal. I tried to believe, but it got harder and harder. One day she disappeared for 3 days. I texted, "Are you okay?" She answered with a short, "Sorry, lots of work." But I knew it wasn't work. It was silence. Cold, unnatural silence. I wasn't angry. I was scared. Scared that what we had was already fading away. Not because of malice, just because nothing lasts forever. I tried to bring back the lightness we once had. I offered to fly back, to book tickets. She replied politely, but without warmth. "We'll see. Things are complicated right now." One day I asked, "Do you still want me to come?" Her answer, "I don't know." That hit harder than a no. It was indifference. I stopped texting first, waited. 1 day. 2. On the 3rd day she wrote, "Sorry, I've been busy." "You're a good guy, really." But it sounded like goodbye. Not cruel, not bitter. Just like she was placing me gently in the past. Like a postcard you keep in a drawer, but never reread. And I knew Nami was gone. I didn't know what to do with the feeling. It wasn't anger, not even heartbreak. It was more like a thick, quiet emptiness. Like someone had dimmed the lights inside me without warning. I started questioning everything. Was it even real? Maybe she was just being polite, and I was the fool who wanted to believe in magic. But the photos were still there. The chats, the memories. I couldn't delete them, the way you can't throw out a ticket stub from a night that meant something. I'd replay her voice notes sometimes. Her voice still felt warm. Or maybe I just heard what I wanted to hear. Maybe I was clinging to echoes. At some point, I realized I had to close the chapter. Not for her, for me. I deleted her number, archived our photos, and I booked a trip to Bali, not to run away, but to breathe. I stayed in a bungalow by the ocean, where the palm trees whispered to the wind, and every sunset seemed to say, "You'll get through this." I walked barefoot in the sand. I drank coconuts. I stayed quiet. And somewhere in those waves, I began to let go. Everything felt different In Bali, people didn't look through you. The air smelled of salt and incense. I found a quiet beach and watched the sun set each night like it was a farewell to the old me. I wasn't looking to meet someone new. I wasn't looking to forget. I was just living. Some days with pain, some with laughter. And one night, under the stars in a hammock, I realized I could dream again. Not of her, of me, of who I was becoming. When I got back from Bali, I felt lighter than I had in months. That trip had taught me how to sit in silence, how to listen to the ocean, how to listen to myself. I wasn't angry at Nami anymore. I was angry at myself for the naivety, the dreams I made up. But that anger faded too. What remained was quiet, and maybe that was the beginning. Now, I see things differently. No bitterness, no illusions. I don't regret meeting Nami. Without her, I wouldn't have taken this journey through love, loss, and finally growth. Maybe she wasn't the villain. Maybe she was just the test, and I passed it, alone, to the end. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. Massive respect to the subscriber who trusted us enough to share it. This isn't just a love story, it's a lesson. A quiet warning. A scar that might save someone else from the same wound. If you saw yourself in any part of this, know that you're not alone. If you're planning a trip to Thailand, bring more than just a suitcase. Bring your sense, bring your spine, bring your limits, because here, it's easy to lose yourself in smiles, in sweetness, in silence. But whatever you do, don't lose yourself. If you've got a story to share, we're listening. This channel breathes because of you. Like, subscribe, share this with someone who might be standing on the same edge. Some love stories don't end in heartbreak. Some start with it. Welcome to Lost in Thailand. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you reflect, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real raw stories from Southeast Asia. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your voice matters. Your story could be next. Welcome to Lost in Thailand.